It's finally here, the Magic 20 Healthy 80 video. You might have heard people talking about this on the internet, and this is where people are getting the transformations and sticking to it in the long term. So listen up, this might be a huge turning point for you in your fitness journey, and especially with the sticking to it in the long term bit. Got a question for you. Have you ever eaten something and felt super guilty about it? Probably yes. I know I have. I know Dean has. Perhaps you kind of avoided a certain food within your diet, but then, eventually you kind of broke and ended up eating that food, but then you just kind of gave up on your diet and continued eating that food all day, and then you just gave up altogether. That happens to a lot of people. Dieting isn't the hard part, or losing weight isn't the hard part. It's just sticking to it in the long term that is. This bit is what's going to help you with that. So keep listening. What do we need to do? Go back to the beginning, and we need to talk about where all this began. In video 1 of Empowered by Eating was remembering that a calorie deficit is the only thing that's going to cause weight loss in the future. That's it, nothing else. You need to remember that and not get kind of confused by everything else that gets talked about in the health and fitness industry. So now that we're talking about the idea that you could potentially eat any foods like this Cocoa Pops or this Snickers bar or, these Mateys, and still lose weight and still be healthy, do you think you could stick to that in the long term? I reckon you could. And that's where most people are getting the transformations. So I'm going to hand over to Dean. He's going to talk about how you're going to fit this into the Empowered by Eating lifestyle.
So basically, what you're actually now going to have is, by incorporating what we refer to as the Magic 20, you'll actually have so much more freedom, so much more flexibility, whilst actually dieting, so to speak, without feeling like you're on a diet. How? How do we go about it? Well, this comes down to an 80-20 split. So the Magic 20 Healthy 80 is basically just a percentage split of what your calories contain. 20% of them is going to be your fun foods. What you may have previously thought about as a banned food when you're on a certain diet, you can actually now have this as part of your normal everyday food without the need to feel any sort of guilt. And the real kicker, you will still lose weight, because going back to that previous point of you just need to be in a calorie deficit, that being the most important thing, you can still have these type of foods and still lose weight. Now that sounds pretty good if you'd ask me. So why? Well, the Healthy 80, the whole minimally processed food, the type of food that really that you should be eating anyway, that takes care of all of your health. The Magic 20, well, really, that just allows you to stick to it in the long term and still lose weight. Sound good?
Yep. Easy as that.
What we tend to see is people who are far too restrictive and cut out everything, as they just can't stick to it in the long term, and this is where the yo-yo diet tends to come from. So how is this possible? Why are some people so fear-mongering with their approach and saying that you can't have certain foods while still trying to lose weight? And why are we then coming around to say, well, you can and still lose weight? Well, in the previous video we discussed fibre, the forgotten nutrient, so to speak. Now what this does is it actually eliminates really the need to massively worry about your sugar intake. If you actually hit within your daily calories, you hit your fiber intake that we've given you in that previous video, the need to worry about sugar massively goes down, because the foods that you'll actually be eating to reach that fiber intake will mean that the amount of calories really that are left for other foods, the Magic 20 foods, is is a lot less. You will not ever need to worry about sugar. How is it then that we go about this? Well, the calories that you've now set up from all of those previous videos, the ones that are personalized to you, the ones that are making you lose weight, like you've already experienced, you're simply now going to take 20% of these calories. How do you go about that? Well, the calories that you're taking in each day, divide those by 100, multiply by 20, that's your 20%. That 20%, that is now your allocation for eating whatever it is that you want. So whatever was previously like the foods that you avoided and then binged on, well, there's your calories now that you can eat every single day from all of those fun foods and still lose weight.
Question for you again. Now that we've said that, do you think that you can stick to that in the long term? I think you can. And that's how we transformed ourselves first of all, and then we transformed many, many people, is by doing this. So just to summarize what's just happened, you might be a little bit overwhelmed by the idea of eating things like Cocoa Pops and things like that as part of a diet. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to it. If you've never kind of heard of this before, for example, once you get used to it in the long term, you've been doing it a little while, you see weight loss happening, you feel healthier, you remove a lot of the guilt from eating the foods that you love, eventually it just becomes normal. And that's like exactly what we want to do with you guys, is make food just normal, and you find this balanced approach. You enjoy your diet. We don't even like to call it a diet, like Dean said. It's just a way of eating, and that's what we want to be able to help you get across by helping you understand this. So what it is 20% of your foods, roughly, don't get overwhelmed by being exact, is from the foods that you would perceive as being unhealthy. Then 80% of your day should be foods that you know is healthy, and that's pretty much it. Combine that with everything else, we give you the average weight tool, your calories, everything starts to come together now. Anything else you want to add to this video? I
think that's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Great. Any questions, as always, head over to the group and let's see some of these foods that you're starting to fit into your diet within the group that might help other people as well. Thanks, guys. See you in the next video.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.